Welcome back to Her Strength in Him. I hope that you have all had an amazing week. It's been a chilly one here where I'm at in Arizona, but all in all, it's been great. I am so excited to dive into today's episode because we're going to be talking about a beautiful story of love and faith. It's the story of Isaac and Rebekah. When you read this story, I'm telling you, the ending of the chapter is like the ending of one of those romantic chick flick movies. You'll see in a bit. Now, their union is a powerful example of divine guidance, trust, and commitment. And whether you're married, you're single, or you're somewhere in between, there's lessons here for everyone. I'll also be sharing a personal story of how trusting God in my relationships completely changed my life. When I look back at how everything played out, I'm still amazed to this day. But first, let's set the stage by exploring who Isaac and Rebekah were and why their marriage is significant. To do that, I encourage you to read Genesis chapter 24. For the sake of time today, though, I'll be focusing on just a few passages from the chapter. Verses 6, 8, 12 through 14, 21 through 27, and 63 through 67. Now, we're going to be focusing on verses 6 and 8, but I'm going to read verses 1 through 8 for context. And it reads, "Now Abraham was old, advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in every way. Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he owned, 'Please place your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I live. But you will go to my country and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac.' The servant said to him, 'Suppose the woman is not willing to follow me to this land. Should I take your son back to the land where you came from?' Then Abraham said to him, 'Beware that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke to me and who swore to me, saying, to your descendants I will give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you will take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this my oath. Only do not take my son back there.'" Let's fast forward just a few verses, and we're going to read verses 12 through 14 next. And it reads, "He said, 'O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today, and show loving kindness to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now, may it be that the girl to whom I say, please let down your jar so that I may drink, and who answers, drink, and I will water your camels also. May she be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac, and by this I will know that you have shown loving kindness to my master.'" Next are verses 21 through 27. "Meanwhile, the man was gazing at her in silence, to know whether the Lord had made his journey successful or not. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing 1/2 shekel and 2 bracelets for her wrists weighing 10 shekels in gold, and said, 'Whose daughter are you? Please tell me, is there room for us to lodge in your father's house?' She said to him, 'I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor.' Again she said to him, 'We have plenty of both straw and feed and room to lodge in.' Then the man bowed down and worshipped the Lord. He said, 'Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving kindness and his truth toward my master. As for me, the Lord has guided me in the way to the house of my master's brothers.'" And lastly, we'll fast forward to the end of the chapter and read verses 63 through 67. And it reads, "Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, camels were coming. Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel. She said to the servant, 'Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?' And the servant said, "He is my master." Then she took her veil and covered herself. The servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Isaac was the promised son of Abraham and Sarah, the child through whom God would fulfill his covenant. And Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, who was chosen in a way that only God could orchestrate. Her kindness, her hospitality, and her willingness to serve made her the perfect match for Isaac. Now, when it came time for Isaac to marry, Abraham knew the importance of finding the right partner, someone who shared their faith and their values. Abraham sent his servant on a mission to find Isaac's wife. This would be a journey bathed in prayer and guided by God. Genesis chapter 24, verses 6 and 8 shows Abraham's trust in God's promises. He says, "Make sure that you do not take my son back there." Abraham insists that Isaac must not leave the land that God promised, emphasizing his commitment to God's covenant. In verse 8, Abraham acknowledges that the servant is released from his oath if the woman refuses to come, showing faith in God's provision. Abraham's faith reminds us to remain committed to God's plans and respect his timing, even when we don't have all the answers, and even when things might not pan out exactly like we expect them to. Now, the union of Isaac and Rebekah is significant for several reasons. First, it shows us what it means to rely on God completely. In Genesis chapter 24, verses 12 through 14, Abraham's servant prayed for a specific sign, that the right woman would not only offer him water, but also water his camels. This prayer reflects a deep trust in God's guidance. As the servant is watching Rebekah, her actions fulfilled every detail of his prayer, proving that God listens to specific and heartfelt requests. Now, this should teach us the importance of patience and discernment in recognizing God's will. So let us be like the servant and continue to seek God's direction in major decisions by praying consistently. And don't forget those prayers of thankfulness when prayers are answered. Remember, God always answers our prayers, but sometimes it doesn't align for what we want for ourselves. Be thankful anyway. Okay, and to round out the story, Isaac and Rebekah's relationship begins with the foundation of love and respect. And this is where I say that the ending of the chapter reminded me of one of those romantic chick flick endings. Now, imagine this. The sun is setting over a wide open field, casting a golden glow on the scene. Isaac, our leading man, is walking alone, deep in thought, meditating. He's been waiting, praying, and preparing his heart for this moment, not knowing what's about to unfold. And suddenly, on the horizon, a caravan approaches. The camera zooms in on Rebekah, riding gracefully, veiling herself as she sees Isaac for the first time. There's an unspoken connection, a mix of curiosity and anticipation. As the caravan stops, Isaac and Rebekah's eyes lock. There's no dialogue, just a soft soundtrack of destiny playing in the background. Isaac takes her hand and leads her to his mother's tent, and in that moment, their love story begins. The scene closes with the single line, "He loved her." And just like that, faith, prayer, and God's plan brought these two souls together in a way no one else could have imagined. And roll credits. Okay, now tell me that isn't a movie you wouldn't want to see. Before we wrap today, I wanted to share a personal story that I feel really ties into the theme of trusting in God's guidance and timing. There was a time when I was chasing the wrong kind of relationship, and it was because I felt lost and I felt depressed, and I was just looking for companionship. I was convinced that I'd never find a godly man. One night, in my desperation, I dropped to my knees and I prayed out loud, crying for God to take the current person out of my life if he wasn't a part of God's plan. I also asked him to give me patience to wait for his timing. Fast forward a few months, and I remember getting a call from someone that I had met earlier in that year, but honestly hadn't given much thought to at the time. He called, and he called, and he called. So I started talking to him, and that was in about October of 2008. And then we began dating in December. We got engaged in February, and then married in April. And the funny thing about that is that we were planning on getting married in October of 2009, but something ended up happening to where it caused us to get married a lot earlier than we expected. So in about March of that year, about a month after we got engaged, Chris got orders to go to South Korea for a year. And I was fully prepared to wait. I told him it's fine, we can get married when you get back. And in his mind, he was like, no, this means we've got to get married now. And we did. Within the month, I was flying across the country to marry this man. And I'm so glad that we did. And yes, this person is my current husband, Chris. Looking back, I can see how God orchestrated everything so perfectly. Trusting him wasn't easy, but his plan was far better than anything I could have ever imagined for myself. All right, moving on. Let's talk about how we can apply the story of Isaac and Rebekah to our lives. For my single folks, focus on spiritual growth and pray for God's guidance in relationships. Don't be afraid to get specific, but just remember to trust that he's preparing you and your future partner in his perfect time. For my married folks, create a prayer practice together and seek God's wisdom in your decisions. And remember that love is more than a feeling. It's a commitment rooted in faith. I hope that you are inspired by the story of Isaac and Rebekah and how we should trust in God and his timing. Whether you're waiting for love or nurturing a marriage, trust that he sees the big picture. This week, I encourage you to meditate on the themes derived from Isaac and Rebekah's story. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love to hear your thoughts. Share your reflections with me on the socials, on Facebook at Her Strength in Him, or on Instagram at Her Strength Podcast. And don't forget to do all the things. Comment, share, subscribe. I've been posting some extra content on both platforms, so I encourage you to go check them out. Thank you so much for joining me on Her Strength in Him. Now, let's go out and live as a reflection of His strength in us. Until next time, friends.